Welcome to the Feelin Alive podcast. I am this week's host, Miriam, and today we're talking about the culture of productivity. So today is going to be about how youth handle today's pressure of productivity. There's an increasing pressure on young people today to achieve and to be ambitious. And this pertains to all aspects, including being a good student, a productive worker, a present friend, while still having time to yourself. So how do we navigate the shoulds and coulds of today's youth culture, and what does it mean to have time to yourself? Shouldn't all time be for you, or are our time being owned by others' expectations? And today we have a guest. We have Marcus here today. Hi.
Hi.
Would you like to introduce yourself just briefly?
Yes, I'm Marcus. I'm 22, and in my everyday life, I'm studying school. So pretty basic education, and I'm just trying to get through the everyday, which can be a struggle, of course, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So, yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah. Okay, so the intro question today is, do you have enough time for yourself? Do you feel like you have enough time for yourself?
I think that's an interesting question, because I think it's about making time for yourself as like a purposeful way, because in this environment we live every day, like a stress and anxiety, you can't just make time for yourself in the moment. You have to like ease into it. You have to like switch mental states. I think it's similar to meditation, where you go from one state of mind, busy work, always thinking about the next thing to do, and homework, friends. You have to make time, and it might take extra time. Like maybe you have to sit down and really like relax and concentrate for maybe more hours. And it's like a state where you have to stay in it to actually get the benefits. Because if you go back to your regular life, which is the opposite with more stress, and it's like a transcending process. So you have to, it's more effort than people think. You don't just take time off. You don't just maybe people who scroll on Reels or TikTok and something. It's like it's a break from the work, but it's not a break for the brain, because you're overstimulating all the time, and it's not healthy to just be so overstimulated all the time. And I think it's important to actually take purposeful time to actually like unwind. I could say like when you're on holiday and you just spend the whole day by the beach or something, that's probably like a real unwinding, because you're actually it's kind of like a cleansing process. Like you cleanse all the constant stress and like the adrenaline and dopamine that's driving you every day to do your job or school or something.
I kind of like that, because I do agree that you can't just like, for example, go to school and then you get home and then just like you don't necessarily automatically relax. You have to actually intentionally set your brain to like, now I'm going to relax. Like, unless you're more in a constant state of relaxation, which very few people are, then you actually have to tell your body, like, now you should try and relax. Maybe with, like, how do you do that if you do anything like that? Some people do meditation or workout or whatever. Do you have any practices that you do to tell your body and your brain, like, this is anti-stress time?
Yeah. Actually, recently I found out how important this is, because in the Christmas period I had a lot of schoolwork and a lot of unwinding time that I needed, but I just spent it all on, as I mentioned before, like just watching reels or something, and it's like constantly stressing.
Almost, yeah.
It's like numbing, but it's also just constant dopamine hit that I needed. But what I recently started to do was I started reading more again. I am like an avid reader, but since I started this school period, I didn't really have time or didn't make time for it.
Yeah.
So I started again, and that's like I said, transcending like process, like transition into the less stimulating, because books are stimulating, of course, but it's not that constant like color, vivid picture, constantly searching for more. It's more like a flow, a flow, like you get what you get.
And also if you read actual books and not just like an ebook, you have the tactile experience of like holding it, like you feeling the book and you're smelling the book and all of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I also stay away from ebooks and stuff because I think that's very important. Also just like holding something, and I think the most important thing is getting away from like the phone and the distractions. Like you have to get, sometimes if it's tough, you have to get like very isolated from all the distractions, because this is more demanding to start the process. I think it's not necessarily demanding to just read regularly, but just starting is more like
creating the habit, right? Yeah. It's really difficult. Yeah, that's a good thing. Like I'm actually gonna take that advice and start reading my books more. I really should. But it's hard, right, to start reading books when you're already reading stuff for school. Because then maybe if you spend the whole day reading, you don't want to go home and read necessarily. Yeah.
I have like this what's it called, like a routine, because I think it's important to stay off your devices before you go to bed, because of like the blue light and also just the stimulation. But if I have homework, I have maybe like, let's say like 20 pages to read something. That's just taking away from my other reading time, because I have to spend this time on the reading, and then I do it maybe on like a website or something, and that just takes away from the actual like transition, because it just takes away from the actual time that I want to read the physical book. So that's also,
so managing.
Yeah, you have to manage time. Maybe you do the homework early in the day, but that's not all. Also, you have to time manage, and that can be tough sometimes.
Yeah, even that is a job on its own. To like, how do I manage my time? Yeah. So our next question is, do you think that stress and anxiety is inevitable as an adult?
I think to a degree that it is. I think like the way society is set up, like the process of going through education and then another kind of education and then maybe one more education, or maybe you go to work. It's like a constant. It's like a constant. You have to be driven. You have to be like constantly doing something, because work requires you to just work, and school requires you to study, to follow. You have to follow. You have to keep up with all the other people, and
perform actually.
Yeah,
just
you always have to perform, especially in school, because you get these grades, and then you keep the grades. You don't really get a second try at the grades necessarily. So you have to keep up a certain standard to get where you want, and especially if you're going for something that's more demanding academically, there's a very high grade ceiling now.
Yeah, you have to have a great average to go anywhere.
So most prestigious, like university, you have to have here in Denmark, you have to have like maybe 11 in your average
out of
grade.
12, yeah.
Yeah, and 12 is the highest.
Yeah.
So you really have to. You always have to keep up and keep the standard, because you're gonna fall behind if you don't.
Yeah.
And that's like a constant thing you have to keep in mind. So you can't really get
catch a break.
Yeah, you can't catch a break because it's like it's a life. You can't you can't catch a break.
But it's also making me think, what you're saying right now is making me think about how there is a very tight window of your life where you have to be extremely performative or like do really great, because of course you also have to keep up with your career if you're in your 40s or 30s. But from when you are in what we call udskoling, so when you are like from 7th grade and then up until after university, that's the window where you have to be super like performing all of the time, because that will determine your grades, right? And those grades might determine so much of the rest of your life, because it will determine your opportunities for university, and that will determine your salary later on, and then how much you would have to work in order to sustain your life. So it's also like, when you think about it, being young is the most, maybe one of the times in your life where you have to perform the most, depending on, of course, your career trajectory.
Yeah. And I think that's also like a universal thing in your life. It's not only academically, it's like you're expected, or maybe a lot of people think in your youth, it's like if you think about the subject of like FOMO, it's not only education, it's also friends. You have to keep up with your friends. You have to be something socially, not necessarily like a status, but you have to like be there for someone, or you have to prove that you can do this. Like a lot of people have a job besides maybe the education, because they want to prove that they are responsible. And I think I have a lot of friends, and also in my class right now, they have very high hours in jobs besides school, and it's not actually necessarily because of the money, and they don't really need the money because they already get money from the government, but like they work so much. I have an example of one friend I talked to recently, where he said that he works just to keep his mind or something, because he doesn't want to. He says he doesn't want to waste time. So he thinks that being productive all the time is necessary, because he doesn't necessarily know how to just relax and unwind, and he hasn't really learned that. But he also said that it's not necessarily a good thing, because he knows that he overworks himself sometimes. And I always keep that in mind, because I don't really want to put too much on my plate, where you end up like this and you're kind of like stuck, because now he also says, like, I have these responsibilities now at school and work, and now I have this status as work as well, where I have some responsibilities because I work so much. My bosses made me get more responsibilities.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a loop, and he kind of got like caught in it.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily like a very bad thing. I think it's just adapting to like how society is set up. So, like just constant anxiety and stress, and like keeping up all the time. It's just natural to just stay in that state. You know,
probably. Yeah.
Because when you're expected to just stay in the state, you'll do that in your free time as well, or maybe just give up free time, like just work and go to school all the time, because then you never have to think about relaxing. It
becomes the default that you're always working, either in your brain or physically, always doing something.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's demanding, but it's also easier just to keep the standard. Just be stressed all the time, because then you never get out of the state, So
yeah, and this ties together what you said earlier, because it is in some ways easier to keep up with the grind because that is the default. And if you need to, or like if you do want to set off some time to relax and de-stress, then you do have to do it intentionally, because society and people around you aren't necessarily telling you to do that. So that is actually harder, because it's always harder to do something that is like out of the normative narrative of how to live your life. I would also like to ask you, what is the main source of your stress and anxiety, and or what role does stress and anxiety play in your life?
Yeah, I think where I study now, it's kind of like you're always in a transition period where you're studying for like the next exam. You're not necessarily studying for the exact same, but your subjects are always pointed towards the goal of getting you ready for this exam. So constantly, like every few months or something, you have all these different subjects. For me, I have like, I think it's 12 different subjects, and it's a wide range, you know, like from math to social studies to religion or chemistry. So you have to, you know, it's like different ways of thinking.
Yeah.
And that's tough. Not because of the amount of work, I think, because that's not necessarily always bad. It's more the diversity of work.
Yeah, the range. You have to think about chemistry one day, and then like, I don't even know, philosophy another, or like something very unrelated.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that can be a problem for people, because not all people are, you know, I think like actually most people have this like a specific way of thinking where they're good at something and worse at other things. For me, example, I very much suck at math. So I struggle with math, and that takes more effort for me to learn, because I have to really like think. But then at like something like English or Danish, it's easy for me.
Yeah.
So it's also that balance where I think like, okay, I have to really study for this math, because maybe in my career or my future, I'll never really use math, but I have to get like this standard test. You know, I have to prove with this exam that I can perform to this level. So you have to reach a certain level first. When if you study university, maybe let's say like psychology or something, you pick this subject. You know, maybe you need all the high grades, but you pick the subject and you specialize. You know, you're interested in this subject. So
yeah,
I think that's a good aspect of, you know, it gets less and less specific. No, it gets more and more specific as you age, your education, and then a job where you work towards this very specific position. But also the work just amounts to more and more, of course, because you're expected to just keep on improving and knowing more and reaching a higher level. And I think it's just this prestige and maybe like performing society where you have to keep up the standard all the time, but also just improve all the time, which is impossible task, because you can't just keep on improving. You have periods in your life where you are up and down. It's not a curve. It's more curvy, if you think like
it's not just exponential.
Yeah, it's not exponential. So you have these periods where you really have to take your time and prioritize other stuff. Maybe you have like a bad mental health period, and that of course affects your work. But then you have to think about what's more important here, because both things are part of your life, but it's also intertwined. It's like they work together, and it's like if you don't sleep enough at night, you're not gonna perform well. You're not gonna be in a good mood. You have to keep a balance. So I think that's how stress and anxiety controls a lot of how you think inside right now. But it's also very useful in this society because it keeps you on your toes all the time.
It is fuel. Yeah.
Yeah. It keeps you engaged, and also the anxiety of just getting the bad grade maybe or not performing well enough makes you perform better because that's the way anxiety actually can be useful. Maybe it's uncomfortable, but it also tries to tell you something like, okay, this actually means something
this is
right
important.
now.
But what I'm hearing you say is that something that like one of the things that is the main cause of stress or anxiety for you is the fact that you have to relate to such a wide range of subjects at the same time in order to meet a standardized level of all things. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's very correct. I think like in the old times you very quickly learned, maybe like your parents were like fishermen or something, and then you were taught that you were gonna be like this, right? Now you have all this choice, so you have to have like a base, like a foundation of like a high level of these subjects to just, it's the standard just to get you to have the choices. So maybe you'll be pushed towards very high grades because then you have the opportunity to just choose whatever you want. But that's also like a paradox because the choice is so mounting, like it's so stressful because how do I know what to pick when there's 1,000 choices? And I think for someone like maybe someone who just has a lot of different interests, it's very, very hard to pick. Because I know some people just maybe like math and then they'll pick something that like specifically
pertains to that.
Yeah. But some people just like a lot of things.
Yeah.
And that's impossible to pick what to do. So you have to make a choice, of course.
It's kind of a shame that you have to make a choice though.
Yeah.
But of course you do, because you have to be really good at one thing in order to make money from it, and then you can sustain your life. But at the same time, I relate hard to, like, I am fortunate to be good at a lot of stuff, but it has also made me completely frozen sometimes because I don't know which thing to do. So I just end up doing none of them. And like, because the normative like idea of how you have a career is very limited to like either you're I'm a lawyer or you're a doctor or some other like really long title that no one can remember. But if you're like an artist / communication strategist / podcaster / whatever, that's not something that is like, well, I guess it's getting more normalized to be more than one thing. But it is like the job market is not necessarily made for that. People who just like, I'm really good at this one thing, right? Yeah.
I think this is also like a new thing where you have the choice of like picking a main job where it's very secure, and it's like you do this one thing, and then all these like odd jobs where you get to do all this different stuff, but it also comes with like the responsibility of just keeping up all the time, and you have to know where you can go after this, because it's not necessarily gonna last forever.
Where's my next paycheck actually coming from?
But it's also just like, who are you as a person? Are you more, do you need to like do this creative stuff, or are you fine with just doing this repetitive job? So I think it's good that we have the choice now, and that it's sustainable to do both. But it is also one more choice where you have to take a risk, or not so much a risk, Also.
You already talked about a little bit about like that, for example, you set aside intentional de-stressing time, and that you think that you need some kind of transitional period, not necessarily days, but just like 10 minutes, an hour, to like go from high productivity state to more, lower, just calm state. And you mentioned one of the things that you do is reading an actual book that you can hold in your hands. But do you have any other tools that you use for being stressed?
Yeah, I think the main thing I do is I stay away from the most like stimulating things. So if I listen to a lot of music up to like a reading session, it's way harder for me to start reading because this is way less stimulating than the music I just listened to. But it can go hand in hand because if I work out or something, I usually get like myself pumped up with the music, so I use the dopamine to make that easier. But then when I actually did the workout, it's way easier to just calm down again. I think you have to use, like your brain and your body is not separate things. You have to put your body in motion to relax your brain. I think it's very essential to always like keep up, because your brain is also needing of like exercise, and it needs to be used. It's not only like reading is also like a mental exercise, but if you balance the body exercises and brain exercises, you get they complement each other.
Like a harmonious state.
Yeah. And I think in our biology, it's just like exercise is essential because it also just releases all these hormones like endorphins and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think exercise is very good for especially people who actually do a lot of mental work and at school stuff, because it both relaxes the brain but also makes it more absorbent of knowledge. It gets more. You have to so basically I stay away from dopamine when I have to do a difficult task, because I know the task is gonna be less stimulating, and then if I hit it with the same base level, it's gonna be way easier than actually having that drop. When you do a very, very fun thing, you usually have like a very high drop in dopamine, so it actually you go below the baseline. Yeah. So it's the curve again, where you have to get up again to reach the baseline. So
you don't just like watch TikTok and then go directly into reading.
Exactly.
For example.
Yeah. I think it's actually way more healthy for humans to just stay near the baseline, because then you can always switch between. But of course, you're gonna have like good moments where you're very happy, and it's inevitable to get the drop. But also, you're gonna have these bad periods where you have to work yourself up. If you need this stimulation, you have a bad day. I think I always think about when I'm sick. I can't get exercise because I have a fever, or I can't talk to friends because I have to be home. You have to have that stimulation, and this is a point where I think this easy dopamine is a good thing. I don't know. You can binge watch a Netflix series, and then you're healthy again when you're done. But that's not necessarily something you can keep up. In your regular life. It's more like
the exception that you can.
Yeah, you have to balance. You have to balance this, because I think like these stimulating things are so. It's fun and good for you and good for your mental health, but in like a moderation way.
And in an intentional way, maybe.
So maybe intentional.
You tell yourself like, oh, it's okay. Right now, I will allow myself to watch Netflix for a whole day, but this is not going to be not just mindlessly scrolling or.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference between doing something intentionally and just seeking that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
That's also why reading is so good, because you intentionally pick this thing to read.
Yeah.
And you're probably interested in it, unless it's like schoolwork. You get time to absorb things. You get time to actually dig down into something, and it's not like 7 seconds and then you're on to the next thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I think it's like relationships. You build that over time with people, and that can take a lot of time, and it can change, and there's ups and downs. And that's like a book where you also have like these characters where you can read into their emotions and
and use your own imagination as to how they look and how.
Yeah. That's actually a good point where you have to instead of these colors popping everywhere and very visual information, you have to be imaginative, and you can create your own thing. You know, like you don't get the same experience reading a fiction book than like your friend, because you have different mental pictures and you read a different way, and
that's how it's a mental exercise, as you were also saying earlier. Training your brain,
but also just getting different perspectives on like humans and society and stuff, because there's very much like a narrative in the algorithms you get when you watch like reels or something. You know, they are like made for you specifically.
That's actually true.
And then they'll just drive you in the same direction. You know, like
that's actually a really good point, I think, because some people are very set, like we're getting more and more polarized kind of in society of like how we think about the human experience, basically. And then you are in your own echo chamber, in your own algorithm. But if you go to the library or bookstore and you just pick something out because you think it looks kind of nice, it's not necessarily like picked out for you based on something that you already were interested in. And then you gain perspectives that is not necessarily like coherent to everything you're already hearing or seeing.
Yeah. And I think it's important to like, also people who just don't read, I think you can compare it to just talking to different people out of your like social circle, just like people who have experienced different stuff, like different cultures. I think you can quickly get like ignorant to your own thinking patterns and like your own biases.
Yeah, for sure.
So like getting that, just going into like a conversation or a book you would never read, just trying this and maybe like looking at this from a different angle of, okay, you can think like this too. That's interesting. Maybe you'll take it to you, like to your heart, or maybe you just think like, okay, that's different. But nevertheless, you get that experience, and that's always a good thing to have. You know, not being so black and white in your thinking. It's like nuanced thinking. I think that's good for like progression and understanding other people.
Yeah, and it draws you away from isolation as well. We are coming toward the end, but we do have a wrapping up question. Just a little fun wrapping up question today is, if your stress or anxiety, whatever you want to call it, was a creature, what creature would it be?
Yeah, I thought about this a little bit, and I think it's more like a shapeshifter. I think it's like because anxiety is so different from like moment to moment. You know, you have like the panic anxiety where it's like all encompassing. It's like it's like a creature that surrounds you, and you're just like you're feeling this weight, and you don't know where to put yourself, and like you feel like you're gonna die maybe, but also this creature just like by your side sometimes, and just like tells you, okay, this situation is a little bit interesting. Maybe it's actually worth it, or maybe you should stay away. It's like, you know, the little guy on your shoulder telling you what you should do, or maybe giving you hints. And then there's also like the stress part. I think it's more like maybe not a creature, but like if you have like a sports coach or something, just constantly telling you to do like go harder, and don't stop and stuff like that.
A little companion that could be good to you. It could be bad to you.
Yeah. Anxiety is a lot of things. I don't think we should just say it's one thing, because it is pretty essential to us living. And of course, it can be a very over encumbering and very mentally unstabilizing thing if you have a problem with anxiety. But in in just our everydays, if you don't struggle with anxiety, it's a very useful thing to just in different scenarios of your life, just maybe it wants to tell you something, maybe it wants to make you keep going, or it wants to tell you that it's important. That's something that's actually important for you.
It's a shape-shifting messenger.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's mostly a messenger, actually.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because it's a little bit Søren Kierkegaard-esque to say that, because you're talking about anxiety not just as this enemy, but as an informative thing that is an inevitable part of life, kind of. But that was also your answer to the question earlier, like that. Yeah, anxiety is inevitable as an adult, like, but it doesn't have to be something that ends your life or stunts your process. It can also be information.
Yeah, I think it's healthy to look at it, even if it's like a ominous presence in your life, or you struggle with this anxiety thing. I think it's there for helping you mostly. Actually, it's like a part of your fight or flight system. You know, you have to have this anxiety, or else you just maybe like, okay, I'll jump off a cliff because you know, I don't have that fear. So it's actually good to have this fear that maybe you take a second to reconsider your actions. Or
so maybe managing anxiety is learning to not make it the enemy, but try and see if you can absorb it as information. Of course, this only applies to people who don't have like really overtaking anxiety, because I've also definitely struggled with that, and that's not useful at all if you're like completely that you can't actually do your everyday life. Of course, that is not great. But every human who is alive has some kind of anxiety, or and that can be useful as long as it's not overtaking your life, of course.
Yeah. There's like a difference. There's a difference between crippling anxiety and just, you know, the normal everyday anxiety. You like, it's, you know, that's just as normal as stress or happiness or something. Of course, the crippling anxiety is a very big problem. But also, if you can make friends with it, it's better to like, you know, if it's gonna be there all the time by your side, maybe it's very annoying for you. Why not make friends with it instead of having it being your enemy? Because then I think it's easier to cope with this. And maybe if you're I wouldn't say lucky, but if the process goes well, it'll leave you more alone and let you actually do your thing, and then maybe it'll be more in your background and make a visit sometimes to say, okay, there's something interesting here.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to think about it, actually. Well, that was our conversation for today. So I just want to say thank you, Marcus.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for